Echo is the latest Disney Plus Marvel show. It follows Maya Lopez after the events of Hawkeye, in which she tries to reconnect with her family and her family roots. But then the Kingpin, he resurfaces and tries to win her back, even at the expense of her own family. Now, to give you some context of my perception towards this show and this character, now the character herself, I did not know about until I saw the Hawkeye series, which is a series that I actually quite like more than most people. But as for the character, again, I didn't know that much about her. So when I saw her on the show, I was like, okay, I'm curious about her. Let's see what they do with her next. And especially since she has ties to the Kingpin in that street section of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I will say I wasn't too thrilled with how they handled the Kingpin in that show, especially since they carried him from the Netflix Daredevil show. But all the other appearances of Daredevil outside of the Netflix show, I felt have been fairly decent. And then when that trailer dropped and we saw that it got a TVMA rating and that they were going to release all 5 episodes all at once instead of doing the weekly episode drop, I was like, let's see how this works out. Now, how did I feel after watching the show? I actually really enjoyed the show. Like, this is something that I've been craving for a long time from Marvel. But I will say there's still room for improvement. This show is not perfect. I mean, let's be real, no Marvel show is perfect after all, but I'd say this is just one of the better ones, and I think it's a lot better than what people are giving it credit for. But I will say this movie does not reach the R-rated heights of the Marvel Netflix shows. At best, it is a very hard PG-13. I mean, it's as hard as Disney will allow them to. But that being said, I feel like they did make right on that TVMA rating, though. And they also did right by the Native American culture in this movie. In fact, I heard that they had some people on the show consulting to make sure they show respect to the Native American culture in this show, especially since one of the tribes on the show is the Choctaw Nation. And I felt it was very respectful and useful and utilized in the show. But as for the action, again, I feel like it was just as hard as Disney will allow them to, but it was still entertaining. Especially they had them one-shots. I felt they were basically almost reminiscent of the Netflix show. They're not as good as the Netflix shows, but it was still decent. Especially with the cameo from Daredevil, I feel like, oh wow, they really going there. They're really going there with the street level character. Now, Alaka Quox, who plays Maya Lopez, aka Echo, I did like where they take her character, but as for her performance, I felt it was a little stoic at times. But then again, I guess, well, hey, this is just how I perceive it, but I guess sometimes it's just hard for a deaf actress to really convey emotion when she's spitting sign language every few seconds. But I felt the sign language aspect of the show worked though. But as far as the character herself, like I said, I like where they took her because she was basically wiped away from her family and heritage at a young age. Then her father gets killed, and so the Kingpin, he basically tailors her to be the deadly assassin that she is. And then once she finds out that he's not the man that she thinks she is, she goes back to her homeland. And overall, this show is basically about the Kingpin, who is a colonizer trying to separate Maya from her homeland, her heritage, and her family. And when she reconnects with all that, she becomes her true self. She becomes one with her family, and she's being the true self that she can be. And she is the best of all her ancestors. Tantoo Cardinal plays Tula, who is her grandmother, who is a Native American actress. She's one of the few go-to Native American actresses, and she is great in this film because she comes with baggage within her family that she does not want to curse upon her family, but then Echo comes in and just stirs the pot, and then she comes to her own realization and helps. Graham Greene plays Scully, who is the grandfather figure to Echo, but he's also another go-to Native American actor who has been in a lot of things over the years. I particularly remember him more so from Twilight, but I felt he was also great on this show. And as for the other family members and friends on the show too, Maya Lopez, I felt they were great for her, but I felt like there just really wasn't enough for me to connect with them as characters, and why Maya Lopez should care when something does happen to them. And while the 5-episode run didn't really harm the show, I felt like the show really could have benefited from being more than 5 episodes. But I think that's more so a fault to the production side of things, because right now Marvel's going through a lot of growing pains, and Kevin Feige, he was just, I don't know what issues they had on this show, but for whatever issues they had on this show, he was trying to salvage it as much as possible, but the show was just too far along, and so he just said, fuck it, let's just release all the episodes at once and just hope for the best and make do with the 5 episodes we got. Overall, I think this film does have some slight story issues and some character issues, but I felt the show makes it up for cool action scenes, a cool way to progress these characters. Vincent D'Onofrio, I felt he was better as a Kingpin on this show than he was on Hawkeye, even though she shot him in the head and now all of a sudden he's alive, and I don't know if they're gonna address that in future Marvel projects, but here it was just... what? But it is a giant question mark. Overall, I don't think the show is as bad as everyone making it out to be, but there's still some room for improvement, and I do want to see what they do with this character moving forward, and I do want to see what they do with this section of the Marvel Cinematic Universe moving forward. In fact, I've always liked the street level characters. I feel like they were more relatable, and I feel like there was just more human stakes involved. And if they continue on with this section of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and improve upon it, I think this character and this section has a brighter future. I'm gonna give Echo the thumbs up emoji.